Hello, my name's Paul Thomas Edward Cusick. I am an engineer by education, but I do research in just about every field that universities teach in, especially a lot of papers in medicine and virology. And of course, COVID is a very interesting topic, and that's what this talk is essentially about. It's an amalgamation of two papers, the evolution of viruses and the transmission of viruses. They're both short papers, so I combined them into one medium paper, and it's still a brief talk. We'll continue. So this brief paper shows that the survival and evolution of viruses follows AT math. AT math is astrotheology, a comprehensive theory of mind on physics, cosmology, and quantum mechanics, and is the solution to the convergence of all of mathematics. So the transmission and evolution of viruses follows what's called AT math. We speak of a virus as having a strategy of survival and reproduction. It is, in fact, per, adamantly persistent in seeking a window of opportunity. In this paper, we put math to that end. You will see that the evolution of viruses follows AT math, or astrotheology math. So time is simply, it's one of the formulas of AT math. It's time is simply kinetic energy, and we all know from high school physics that kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, or in fluid mechanics, it's 1/2 rho v squared, where rho is the density and v is the velocity. So we know from astrotheology that that would be 1/2 times 4 by pi is the density, not pi by 4, which is an important number, 45 degrees. That's important in astrotheology as well, but 1 over pi by 4, which is 4 by pi, multiplied by the velocity, which is 1 over root 2 squared. 1 over root 2 is the sine of 45 degrees, which is equal to the cosine of 45 degrees. So you have two waves, and where their maximum is where time is pi by 4 or 45 degrees. So the sine of 45 is equal to the cosine of 45. So we have our time works out when we take a half times 4 over pi times 1 over root 2 squared. We end up with 1 over pi. And 1 over pi is the frequency of the human mind. Well, the potential energy, PE, is the mass of the is mass, and it's what we're dealing here with is the nervous system disease, the spine in the brain. So mass is equal to ln T. That's another fundamental formula of astrotheology mathematics. Mass is simply the ln of the time. Mat is equal to 40 centimeters. That's the length of the back by 1.25 times 1.25 centimeters, which is the width and the depth, multiplied by 1.010, and then add 1350, which is the mass of the brain, is equal to root 2. Well, the mass is equal to root 2. That's because energy and time are equal. So total energy is potential energy, which we calculated 2 slides ago, and plus, I'm sorry, with the last slide, and the kinetic energy, which is calculated 2 slides ago. So TE equals PE plus KE. So that's mass is potential energy. Einstein told us mc squared. And kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, which is 1 over pi. So 2 plus 1 over pi is equal to root 3. And root 3, square root of 3 is an important number in astrotheology mathematics. So the nervous system, if we treat the nervous system as an electric circuit, we have the formula V equals IR. The voltage is equal to current times resistance. And The voltage we know from astrotheology math is 105, which is equal to T squared times 2, because I is equal to T squared, and resistance is 2. That's the mass resistance, right? So we have T equals 7.25. We'll see that later on. Energy is simply equal to 1 over T. When the function equals the derivative, which we'll see later on, we have the formula mass is equal to the ln of T we just saw. The derivative, energy and mass are equal. So the derivative of mass is equal to the derivative of ln T. The derivative of ln T is 1 over T. So energy and mass are equal, so energy is equal to 1 over T. And the only number that actually solves that is 1 and 1. So the derivative equals the function I've mentioned, y equals y prime, and what solves that is e to the power t. We have the golden mean parabola, abbreviated as GMP, and the parabola, the characteristic equation, and the third fundamental formula of astrotheology is t squared minus t minus 1 is equal to the derivative of that function, which is just bring the 2 down, 2t minus 1, and you set them equal, the function equal to the derivative, and we end up with two critical values. At time is equal to 3, it's called the eigenvalue, and if you put 3 back in that equation, say the 2t minus 1, 2 times 3 is 6 minus 1 is 5, so the energy is 5. So we'll see why that's important later on, the energy equal to 5. It's when there's 5 people, you have an outbreak. So interesting that E, which is the solution to y equals y prime, when you raise it to the power t or the power of 3, it's equal to 20.08. And we'll see that in a little later in the only figure in this talk. I don't do these talks live because I'm not very good with the technology. Maybe someday I'll learn it. I've been studying computers since I was in grade 12 in 1984, and they still give me a lot of trouble. So I'm now learning Windows 11. So energy is equal to the root 3 plus 1 over t, we said was energy. So it's root 3, not plus, but rather times 1 over 3 is equal to 1 over root 3. 1 over root 3, we saw that energy is root 3, so 1 over root 3 is 1 over the time. So we have 1380 times 1 over 3 is equal to 8 is the time. If we take the time to be 8, 1 over 8 is equal to 1.25. And minus 1.25 is the minimum of the golden mean parabola. So if you graph the golden mean parabola, the bottom or the slope of the tangent is 0. If you recall from high school calculus, you have energy is equal to minus 1.25. All these numbers are working out beautifully for astrotheology. So here we have what they call in physics the double slit experiment. We have a couple of slits, and they are spaced, the distance between them is root 2, and each slit is 20 millimeters wide. So we saw the 20 millimeters is equal to e to the 3. The answer is 20.08. And the distance between them is root 2. So when we have these factors come together, we have a convergence of the sign, the waves that are going through these slits, and they make a band pattern on the wall, and that's the limits of the bands on the wall. So this is when the virus is successful, when it can pass through these slits. It's a model of how the virus operates. So virus is passing through the slits of the double slit experiment. The square root of 2 plus 20 equals 3.4142, which is 196.5.6 degrees. So the sine of 199.62 degrees squared is equal to 7.25, which we saw in the previous slide is equal to the time. And 1 over 1380 is equal to 7.25. So that's the 1380 we see again. So we take 195.62 and divide it by the 360 degrees, it's equal to 543. Now the golden mean parabola, if we plug that value 543 into t squared minus t minus 1, the golden mean parabola, we end up with 1.248, or approximately the 1.25 again. So that's that critical value, 1.25 for the energy, and it occurs when t equals a half. So a circuit of 7 capacitors, where each capacitor is a distance that must be crossed by a virus to access an open window. So we have the formula for electricity, V equals IR. We know the voltage from astrotheology is 105 volts, is equal to 7 over C over the capacitance. So the capacitance is equal to 350, and I equals T squared, so I equals 7.25, which is T. We just saw, so it's T. The ln of 350 is equal to 105, which is equal to the velocity. So the conclusion from part 1, viruses are persistent and that they never give up looking for a weakness in a host to allow the survival and reproduction. They're the masterpieces of evolution. We shall begin on the second part. The transmission of viruses. So stopping. How do you stop a virus? So how to stop an outbreak? You have to watch for the first 5 infected people, which we saw as the energy when y equals y prime. Recall time is 3, energy is 5. So we'll see an interesting graph of the US COVID virus in this part of the talk. It's very brief, it's not very much longer. Viral transmission obeys the AT-mass solution that is derived from the Pareto rule. The Pareto rule is that it takes 20% of the effort to get 80% of the result. That's essentially what AT-math is about. So in this brief paper, brief talk, we show that preventing the first 1/7 from being infected is paramount to stop a virus in its tracks. So you actually have 7 stages that the virus goes through, and they can be stopped at any 1/7. And it depends on how many people get vaccinated. We also plot the COVID cases for the USA from the beginning of January 22, from the beginning to January 8th, 2023. So the virus started up around be January 1st, 2020, I'm sorry, yes. So we can develop a formula. We know the number of cases. It's a strict linear function, and you'll see that later on. So there's the equation of the line. Y is equal to 95103 times X. So energy, Y is energy equals 95103 times the time, is what I call the Cusick viral equation, and can be used for COVID results. So I noticed that monkeypox, or mpox they call it now, I guess, is stagnated. a lot of the population has already been vaccinated for smallpox, which provides some barrier to the new infections. I actually had it on my hand, I think, a lesion, but I was vaccinated for smallpox because I was born in 1967. So that's monkeypox. It didn't expand the way I thought it would. Theory, the key to beating viral transmission is not allowing the virus, any virus, to get an infection rate of 1/7. The, the secret is found in the AT mass solution. So mass is equal to 1 over 81, and that's an interesting number, and it's as important, I suppose, as pi. It's a very important number. And 1 over 81 is equal to 0.01234567 So it's jumping by a seventh, jumping by 1 times 7 jumps. And the last time it jumps is 2. So that's interesting because as I say, you can stop the virus at any one of those, either the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7. So we'll see that in the United States it was stopped at the 6th. We'll see the figures for that. Note that the jump by 1/7 at each decimal up to 7 and then jumps by 2. Once we jump by 2, the virus is on its way to full infection. So you have to get early is the motto. Golden mean parabola, thus dm by dt, the rate of change in mass, expected time we know from astrology is equal to 2. Mass is equal to the longitude. So dm by dt is the derivative of ln t, which is 1 over t, and that's equal to 2, so t is equal to a half. And as I mentioned, a half is the critical point on the golden mean parabola, where the energy is equal to minus 1.25. So it all ties together. So we have 7 cycles of pi. Pi runs from, the ln function runs uh, negative values of mass below time equal to 1. If time is on the x-axis, when time is equal to 1, that's where the ln function crosses over from negative mass to positive mass. And it goes all the way along for time until time equals pi. That happens to be when energy is equal to 1. Because pi squared minus pi minus 1 is equal to 57.29, which is in degrees is 1 radian. So that's what happens. It goes up to from 1 till pi is what the time ranges. And then when it hits that pi, it starts over again at 1 and it goes all the way up to pi again. And it does that 7 times. And when it does it 7 times, you end up with 7 pi, which is equal to 22. Pi is 22 over 7. So 7 pi is 22. And 2 to the power 22 is important for telescopic statistics, the binomial distribution. But I won't say any more about that this time. So here's a case of the plot. I'm going to have to refer to my notes because I'm sorry, it's not completely clear. But anyway, we have a plot here of the case counts on the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, we have time. And it's just a simple plot where the 0 would be, it's actually 6 cases we had on December 31st, 2020. And it ranged up until 2023, 0108. And we had 102,045,869 cases. So you can get a line from that. It's just a simple linear function, y equals mx plus b. So we're saying b is 0. It's really 6, but we'll say it's 0. And once you're beyond that, first 5 cases, it starts And then the race is on to see how fast you can get the 1/7 stop, or the 2/7 stop, or the 3/7 stop. In this case, it goes all the way up until uh, it goes all the way up until the sixth seventh, or 1/7 times six, and that is 102, 102 85. I'm sorry, 102,045,869. So basically that's 102 million in the States. And if you take that 110 million and divide it by 7, let me go calculator. You multiply that by 7, you end up with 72. And 72 is an interesting number because that's the number of where you calculate how long it takes an investment to double. So that's what's happening with the COVID. One person has it, and they give it to two people, and then those two people give it to two people, and it goes all the way up until 2 to the 11th, and then it starts to go telescopic. It starts going down to 2 to the power 22, which we saw is equal to 7 pi is equal to 22, 21.99. So viral infections can be stopped at any time 1/7 of the population is infected. Ideally, stopping a virus as quickly as possible to stop the first 1/7 of the population from becoming infected will save the rest from being infected. It stops the virus in its tracks. So you have a 7th each time to stop it. And once you have 5 cases, you have an outbreak. You got to jump on the five cases and isolate them, and then it should stop the progression of the virus sooner than if you didn't do anything. So I don't know how much we didn't know. As we learned some things about the mathematics of viruses, the evolution, how they pass on, and the transmission. And that is my talk. It's a 22-minute talk. It's brief, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed preparing it, and I hope I can find the email so I can send this in. Anyway, cheerio.